On today's show, Moshe Amsel, founder and CEO of Profit with Law and the upcoming 2025 Law Firm Growth Summit. We'll be talking about building generational wealth by thinking about your law practice like an investor, not a lawyer.
When you look at people who have amassed significant wealth, they're in the business of buying businesses, making them better, and then selling them, right? Or adding them to their portfolio. When you think like an investor, the real money to be made is when you are leveraging other people's talents and serving a need in the community with that.
Welcome to the Alpha Lawyer Podcast, a show dedicated to exploring what makes law firms thrive. I'm your host, Jason Marsh. Join me as I interview some of the smartest thought leaders and accomplished law firm owners in our space. Together, we'll dive deep into law firm operations, marketing, technology, finance, and everything else you need to build an incredible firm that allows you to live your best life. Hello, and welcome to the Alpha Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jason Marsh. But more importantly, today I'm here with Moshe Amsel, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming 2025 Law Firm Growth Summit. That's coming up in 2 weeks, February 4th through the 6th. Moshe is the founder of that. He's also the founder of and CEO of Profit with Law. It's an organization and a corresponding podcast that's dedicated to helping law firm owners not just grow their practice, but really focus on the idea of creating generational wealth, which is, and I'm excited to talk about that specifically. But Moshe, you've been featured on CBS, USA Today, NBC, Fox, and now right here. So anyway, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, the Alpha Lawyer Podcast is the top one there. Like, why did we put it last? Featured on the Alpha Lawyer Podcast, go right on the main page there. But thank you so much, Jason, for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience. And as a fellow podcaster, I understand that you're getting in front of an audience, but there's no feedback, right? It's a one-way conversation. We're just hoping it's going to land on somebody's ears and somebody's going to get influenced by it. So, folks, if anything that we talk about today is something that really ignites you and you're like, or the light bulb goes on, you have an epiphany, just think about your friends and like, okay, who else would benefit from this, and just share this episode with somebody.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, cool. Well, thank you for helping me sort of promote. Yeah, because I was looking, you've done like 500 podcasts. I'm like, okay, this guy knows how to do a podcast. But anyway, let's talk about the Law Firm Growth Summit. So again, that's in 2 weeks from now. And now, before we get into the specifics of that event itself, I wanted to talk about like the genesis of sort of how you came, not just to that event, but the broader mission that you have of building generational wealth. Because you're talking for a few minutes sort of before the podcast that I feel like just the idea of building wealth is so lost on people that, we're talking about lawyers. But anyway, how did this become such an important theme for you?
So, we got to go back to about 2006. I was going through my divorce at the time, and whenever you have any big, massive thing that happens in your life, some traumatic event, and this was definitely emotionally traumatic, it really starts to make you think about everything else in your life. And I started to take inventory, take stock of what I was doing at the time. I was an IT professional, and basically, my claim to fame was resurrecting servers that were being held ransom by ransomware in the middle of the night. And I started to think about, like, what do I want to be known for? Like, what's the impact I want to have on this world? And I decided that just having that be the thing they talk about when I die, that I resurrected servers in the middle of the night, just wasn't sexy enough, right? It wasn't a big enough mission. So I started to really think about, like, what impacted me? Like where was I influenced in my life that was so great that I feel like this is the thing I want to run with. And, I have a very interesting story just of how I entered adulthood. I got married at 19, had my first daughter when I was 19. Wasn't a shotgun wedding. It was 9.5 months after we got married when she was born. But I was raised Jewish Orthodox, and there were certain parameters of how to live your life that were put into place that kind of drove those decisions. I don't regret any of it. I love what I did, but it also forced me to achieve a level of success at a very young age that people just weren't, like, your mindset's not there. And it just goes to show that, like, whatever you put your mind to, you can accomplish. At 21, I was earning $100,000 plus in IT. a year at W-2 wages. And at the time, I guess that's the equivalent of today, probably in the 200,000 range, is my guess. And I was expecting my second child. So I went to my mom and I said, I think it's time for us to buy a house. And, but I know that I can afford the monthly payment, but I don't know how do I amass the $30,000-$40,000 deposit that I need to buy a house. And for those of you in really middle country locations, I'm in New York, so yeah, houses even at that time were $300,000+ for a home purchase. So you needed 20% of that. You had $60,000 was the minimum gate of entry. So I went to my mom and I had this conversation, and she said, "Well, your grandfather had as owns an apartment building on the west side of Manhattan. So just a little bit about my grandfather." He left Nazi Germany at 11 years old with his dad. His twin siblings, one of them contracted pneumonia as they were leaving. So his father was an orange merchant. He owned orange orchards. And because of that, he was in the import-export business, was very well connected with the import-export people, which were the same people who were allowing or stamping your passport and visas and allowing you to enter and exit the country. So when things were really going south with what was going on with Germany and Hitler and World War II, Jews were looking to get out of the area because it was really bad for them. And my great-grandfather was, he was connected, so he was able to gain exit for his entire family through Italy. But one of them contracted pneumonia, had to be hospitalized, and he decided that he and his son are going to go, and his wife and the twin kids would stay in the hospital and take the next boat out. Well, there was never a next boat. They ended up dying in the Holocaust. But my grandfather ended up settling ultimately in Washington Heights, New York, with his father, and his father had sent some of his money that he had turned into diamonds and sent it forward to a cousin, so that when they ended up there, he had the inventory he needed to start a diamond business. That diamond business was something my grandfather took over. He had some success with it, and with that success, he took some of the money that he had earned, and together with 4 other cousins, bought an apartment building on the west side of Manhattan. We all know what happens with real estate. You hold it long enough. I mean, it's really a true wealth creator. And fast forward to, I'm now a grandchild, married with kids, looking to buy a house. And my grandfather's, together with his cousins, has started selling off the units in the building, turning it into a co-op. And he earmarked the money from those sales, the sales of those units, to fund the down payment of the first home purchase for all 36 of his grandchildren. And at that time, my mother told me, you've already got it in place. Your grandfather saved it for you, and and here it is.
And that really is a true example of how you build not just wealth, but the generational wealth, because 36 grandchildren helping or providing the down payment now enabled all 36 of those people to start building their wealth. And I'm sure in the same way it was for your grandfather, you build the wealth, you do things to try to make the world a better place for your family, outside of your family. And I imagine you as one of those grandchildren, and now your grandchildren, it continues to flow in that way.
Jason, it's not just you think about it. I think it was $40,000 I received. It's not just the 40,000 is a drop in the bucket. It's a joke, right? It's not really much. Multiply it times 36, it starts to be something, right? But what that small little gift allowed me to do, it was a lever that allowed me to do so many other things in my life that I wouldn't have been able to do. And when I look back on it, it was that small little boost that really drove a lot of my financial future. One of the things that happened was I went through a divorce. Well, I had bought a house and we had amassed some equity in it. And when I went through the divorce, rather than squabbling over whatever we had built up in the house equity, I fully funded all 3 of my daughter's college funds from the sale of the home when we went through that divorce. So that $40,000 gift now turned into my 3 daughters being able to go through college 20 years later. And then on top of that, because I wasn't saving money for a down payment of a house, I was able to be fully funding my retirement account at the age of 19, 20, 21, in that range. I had a good income, and that completely changed the trajectory of my retirement savings, where other people are first starting in their 30s. I already had a significant amount of money that not just was saved, but was invested and was recurring, building that, that compounding wealth that happens when you have money that you're able to put to work. So that small little gift really started a daisy chain effect of changing the financial future for me and my family. So in 2006, when I was going through the divorce and I'm having this come to Jesus moment. Okay, I'm Jewish. It's not come to Jesus, right? But I'm having this moment of like, what do I want to be known for? I suddenly said, well, what if I can help other people do what my grandfather did for me? What if I can help people set themselves up, not just for their own success, but to create something so that when they leave, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren are the beneficiaries of what they've created. And that's what started me on the journey of really focusing on how do I help people with creating generational wealth.
Yeah, and it's so important. In fact, I was having a similar conversation with someone yesterday. We're just talking about the idea of building wealth, whether you're a lawyer or not, but and I've seen this in my own life where you have friends, right? Over time, their income increases, but then right along with that, they increase their lifestyle. Correct. And so then there's no savings, there's no investment that comes out of that. I've had friends, and whereas I think for me, I've tried to keep, your expenses lower and live within your means or as far below your means as you can, because then you take that money, you invest it, you buy assets that cash flow appreciate, all of those things that are required to actually build wealth. And so that's partly why this really resonated with me when I saw that is your mission, because there's so many programs and people and coaches out there. We can help you grow your firm. We can help you systemize your operations. We can help you do all of these tactical things within your business. But really, those are just really pieces of a bigger, so the way you framed it as the idea of, we'll get into this, is sort of thinking like an investor with your practice, not like a lawyer, and building wealth through that vehicle. And of course, doing all of those things, but that being the end goal. So I just thought that was awesome. Anyway, let's talk about the Law Firm Growth Summit. Again, that's coming up in a couple weeks. I'll get all the details. That'll be in the show notes as well. But as I said, it really struck me that was the theme to learn all of these things. But again, thinking like an investor and not a lawyer. So what inspired that?
So actually what happened was last year when I ran the summit, I had to do a talk, and I started to really think about what's the big lever that my clients are pulling, right? Like at the end of the day, when I'm in coaching calls, I'm having these conversations and I'm talking to people about helping them, grow their business, build it. What's the big thing that they're stuck with that's limiting them or slowing them down from really unlocking the true potential of what they can create? And when I thought about it, I realized that the difference is just how they view themselves. And that's where I did a talk at the last summit around this concept of basically changing how you view yourself and thinking like an investor. And I've been really leaning into that throughout the year. And now I decided to theme the whole event around it. And it's basically the concept's like this. 99%, this is not a study I did. This is just the way it happens, right? Like 99% of law firm owners that start their firms start with the idea that I'm a lawyer. I'm going to go and I'm going to get my own clients, serve those clients, and I'm going to have a law firm.
Right. It's a classic E-Myth, right?
Correct. Exactly. You can E-Myth or all of the other books that talk about this idea, but let's just frame it for lawyers, right? Everybody will nod their head and say, yes, of course, that's how I started my business. I either brought a book of business with me or I went out and started to figure out how to get clients, but I got clients so I could serve them. How many law firms started by hiring an attorney and then filling that attorney's plate? Yeah, if they're out there, it's maybe 1%.
Yeah,
right?
Such a small thing. It's just the idea that a lawyer or other people, even me, I've started business. Oh, I know how to do digital marketing. I'll start a digital marketing business. And then I'm doing everything versus what you're describing is and the E-Myth and other things, but that's not the way to do it. It's to think about how would an investor approach starting this business?
Right. If you watch people like Alex Hermosi or Cody Sanchez, right, and they talk about their portfolio companies and how they're buying businesses and stuff like that, when you look at people who have amassed significant wealth, They're in the business of buying businesses, making them better, and then selling them, right? Or adding them to their portfolio. The real, when you think like an investor, the real money to be made is when you are leveraging other people's talents and serving a need in the community with that. So when we approach it with I'm the attorney, we're automatically putting ourselves into a position where we're limiting our success. And what ends up happening is that somebody starts their firm, and let's just talk in the solo box for a second, because even when you grow beyond yourself, like I have a fractional CFO business, right? We work with multi-million-dollar firms, and when I come in, even those owners are still operating, even though they've figured out how to hire staff, and they're still thinking like an attorney. And when you think like an investor, you'd be looking at your P&L, you'd be looking at you'd be doing projections, you'd be looking at leveraging capital, things like that. But they're not doing that. So let's just live in the solo box for a second. So solo attorneys, when you start your firm, you go out, you get clients. Now you're serving clients. You get into this vicious cycle of I need clients, I'm going to go out and sell. And then I've got clients, now I'm going to go and serve. And then it creates this feast or famine situation.
Yeah.
But it also limits your revenue potential because so much of your time is spent on all the other pieces of the business. Clio did a study back in 2020, 2021. I forget which legal trends report it was, but in one of those trends reports, they did the study of, how many billable hours does a solo attorney do? And it was 2.1 hours per day is what a solo attorney bills, and they collect on 1.9 hours. So if we think about it, if you hire an attorney onto your staff, that attorney is only going to be doing billable work, right? Let's just say that you can only get 6 productive hours in a day. There's wasted time for lunch, whatever time between things, breaks, wasting time at the water cooler. 6 hours is your productive time. That means that if you hire an attorney, they can do 3 times what you can do as your own attorney in your own firm as a solo. Wouldn't you agree that if you put somebody in place and they could do 3 times as much, that you would unlock triple the benefit or potential of what you can do? And then then the argument is like, well, yeah, but then we need to find those clients. Yeah, but if you were spending 100% of your time finding clients, wouldn't you fill their plate? And then to take it even further, if you brought in a salesperson and brought in a marketing person, wouldn't they do a good job of filling that person's plate, right? So when we start to think like an investor and start to assemble the team that it would take to fill one attorney's plate, not the owner, we're looking at $1 million business for one attorney.
And what are some of the things that, and we know as when you start, because, hey, I'm a lawyer, I'm going to open a practice, I'm going to start, I'm going to hang my shingle, I'm going to practice law, but you very quickly realize, well, unless you brought a book of business, you've got to go find those clients. You end up in that feast or famine cycle, because while you're serving the business, your marketing and sales pipeline dries up. Then you go back to that, and then your service delivery isn't what it maybe should be. How do you move from that type of scenario, and does it require like significant capital, right? To say, hey, I'm going to go out and hire an associate, and I'm going to fill their plate with work, but I've got to pay them. I've got to pay for the marketing and the sales. Is there a path to doing this that you recommend?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And in this talk that I did last year, I basically used the analogy of a 7-Eleven. I'll just use that here because it's really easy and it's something I can, I know the numbers off the top of my head. But if you're to open a 7-Eleven franchise, you know what it costs to open a 7-Eleven franchise?
I don't. $1 million?
It's between $750,000 and $1.5 million. Okay, let's just use the upper number, $1.5 million. Now, do you think that a 7-Eleven franchise owner, when they decide to open a franchise, has $1.5 million in the bank?
No, of course not.
They don't. They need to have at most 20% of that in the bank.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be their funds. They can go to family, friends, whatever. Like, they amass $300,000 in capital. Then they go and they deal with 7-Eleven to enter the franchise. They choose a location. They get an SBA loan or whatever, whoever's going to fund it. And boom, they've got themselves a 7-Eleven business. Now, so if they came up with $300,000 and they borrowed the rest, they borrowed $1.2 million. Now, here's the kicker. Do you know what the profit is for a 7-Eleven?
No idea.
The annual profit for the average 7-Eleven is, guess what? $1.2 million.
Wow.
Annual, every year. Would you borrow $1.2 million if you knew that every year you would get $1.2 million back?
Yeah, of course. And one of the things that you're talking about here is leverage, right? Another key piece of how you build wealth.
That's
But
a
you
piece
can
of it, yeah.
buy a $1.5 million business with, you don't need the $1.5 million, but you can do that with, say, $300,000 in equity that you can also get from your friends. The rest is debt. So now you bought it, you've run it, year one, put what, $1.2 million on the bottom line? Is that what you're saying the net is?
Correct.
On $300,000 of equity, you've fixed your money year one, right? And this is the
Correct.
whole
Now, of course,
concept
you
of
have
thinking
debt
like,
service, right? You have to, some of that money is going to go to pay down the debt that you took in order to start it. But you
right.
also don't have to pay back 1.2 million the first year. So you've already got a really nice income from that business in year one. Now, let's switch gears to a law firm for a second, right? If we look at the salary of an attorney, the salary of a paralegal, and marketing as 10% of revenue, right? So let's say $1 million of revenue, 10% in marketing is $100,000 in marketing. A lawyer's $150, a paralegal is $100. We're talking about $350,000 of expenses for the bare bones, stuff that you need. Of course, there's overhead, there's rent, all that other stuff. But you bring in $1 million in revenue, you can spend $350,000, right? And still have $150,000 for overhead, and you're still making a 50% margin. So I know I oversimplified the business, but when we look at the end result of having an attorney who's fully booked, that's doing $1 million worth of business, at the end of the day, your margin, and this is another sticking point. So I'm the profit guy, profit with law. I'm a profit first professional.
Gotta be.
And a law firm should be generating between 35 and 50% profit margin. And attorneys will fight me on this. And they'll be like, it's impossible. I've been doing this for 20 years. You cannot do that. And I will tell you that we do it day in, day out with our fractional CFO clients. We take multi-million-dollar businesses. I've got a client that came in December of 2023 running a 7% profit margin on a $7 million business. In the first 90 days, we were at 23%. He made more money in the first 90 days than he did the entire year before, and we are marching towards 35% with him now leading into 2025.
Amazing.
It is possible with every single business. So if you build $1 million business, you can assume that at least your margin is 35%. So if you had to borrow the salaries and the marketing of the first year, which you're not going to have to, right? It starts to cash flow itself fairly quickly. But let's just say you needed a whole year's worth. So you had to borrow $350. Would you borrow $350 to make $350? And of course, the answer is yes. It's the same thing as the 7-Eleven example, but we don't think that way. That's not where our mind is.
Most entrepreneurs,
every law firm owner. Sorry, Jason. Let me finish this one thought, and then I want to hear your question. But the mindset of every law firm owner is, I don't have the cash flow to support the salary of an attorney. I don't have the cash flow to invest in marketing. When I get one more client, then I'll be there. And that is a trap that keeps you trapped for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And you could have changed the entire script of the conversation. And I'm not saying go out and borrow money. Like, that's not the message, but that is one of the possible ways that you can grow it. So let's use it as an example. Go out, take out a $300,000 loan, and in 1 year, you'll be at $1 million business with $350,000 in profit, and you'll never look back.
Yeah, it's so interesting because what we're talking about here is, just as you put it, we're talking about really the difference between looking at your business as an investor versus just trying to get the work done, figuring out how to make incremental progress. And I think, part of it too is you talk about the importance of profit first, because revenue is a great metric, but it's a vanity metric, right? Because as the saying goes, it's not what you make, it's how much you keep. And you said $7 million. Can you imagine doing $7 million worth of work? The amount of effort it is to generate that level of business, to service that level of business, and only put 7% on the bottom line. I mean, that's still a good number for anybody, but the performance is poor. And so I guess my question is so if you're an attorney, you're in this phase, okay, I started a law firm, I'm doing all the work, I'm just trying to make some progress here. Like the 7-Eleven, can you go out and say, all right, you know what? I have some capital. I'm going to put a couple $100,000 down. can you go to a bank and raise the additional 80% capital to say, hey, now I have $1 million, I can put into a business, and I can start to look at this thing like a real investment and how I'm going to build out this firm so that I can return capital to myself and pay the debt service?
The answer to your question is yes, but, or yes, and. Somebody with good credit, somebody with cash in the bank should be able to unlock significantly more than they have in the bank. So, but I don't think you need $1 million. I don't even think you need 300,000. I think that was a worst case scenario. Like, let's really talk about the reality of the situation. If you were to invest $10,000 a month in marketing, how long would you expect that you need to have that running to start to see clients coming in from it? I don't mean max return. I mean just clients coming in from it. Would you agree 90 days is probably a good number?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a number of tactics. You can start investing these dollars, and within a fairly short amount of time, you can start to see some type of activity and a return. Even if it's like you're saying, even if you're just sort of breaking even at that stage before you get to the part where you can actually start generating an ROI.
Right. So if the time frame for bringing in clients from a marketing effort is 90 days, right? And let's say that you were to go out and hire an attorney who's not a baby attorney, right? They're not coming in green. They've been practicing in your practice area for 5 years plus. And you're going to pay a premium for that. Probably $30,000 to $40,000 more than you would pay somebody straight out of school. But that's another mistake that law firm owners are making. Because when you're approaching it from how is the cheapest way that I could get somebody in the door, you're going to think of it that way. But instead, you need to think about it as this is the person who's going to be serving every one of my clients. I'm not here to babysit them. I need to put somebody in who's going to get the job done. So
right,
I'm going to pay for that.
Suck up your time.
Correct. You don't need a project. You need somebody who's going to hit the ground running. So you go out and you hire somebody who's got 5 years of experience. There's cases coming in. Should they be able to handle those cases on day one? So even if we say 90 days is the time frame to get them onboarded, to get them, into your systems, and that's way too long, by the way. That literally 3 to 4 weeks is all it should be, and they should be billing like 6 hours a day if you have the work for them. So you get an attorney, let's just give it 90 days. You get the marketing, give it 90 days. Say you even bring on a salesperson. You bring on, like, all of these pieces, they're going to take 90 days to come to fruition. Say it also takes 90 days to find them, to vet them, to, put them in place. 6 months. At most, you need the capital of all of these jobs to pay these salaries for 6 months. At most, you need 6 months of marketing. And at that point, even if you're not running a 30, 40% profit margin, you should at least be covering your expenses. So when we said, hey, you need 300,000, you don't need 300,000, you need 150, right? So even dialing back what you actually need is a piece of the puzzle. Now, for you to get access to 150,000 in capital, would a bank entertain lending that to you if you had the other $30,000? And the answer is absolutely yes. The beautiful thing is that if nothing else, there's an SBA program for you, right? Like, there's SBA 7A loans, and you can take an express loan, which you have to be in business for 2 years, and you can look at your previous revenue. But if you're making the switch from, hey, I've been a solo for 15 years, and I'm finally understanding that Moshe knows what he's talking about, and I'm going to do this, you can go to the SBA, take out an express loan, and you can get $150,000 with minimal paperwork overnight. Right?
Yeah.
If you need more than that, or if you don't have the revenue to support that 150, you can still take out a regular SBA 7A loan that might be backed by personal assets, might be backed by other pieces of the puzzle that you have. But at the end of the day, you can get access to $300,000, $400,000 in capital through that program. You can get access to a lot more if you want to buy a building.
And the 7A loan, the SBA 7A loan, so I'm certainly aware that they're great for purchasing businesses and funding that. I wasn't aware that they will actually help with startup funding or sort of early stage funding.
There are different programs. One of them is startup funding. Another is existing business. You can do debt restructuring. You could do growth. You can invest in your growth. So even if you're, you got 4 attorneys on staff and you're like, okay, my next big thing is I got to do radio and TV, and I need $500,000 of capital to do that. you can go to the SBA and you can get a $500,000 loan under the 7A program just to fund that marketing effort.
Wow, great to know. I definitely wasn't aware of that. So for anyone listening, absolutely need to look into the SBA 7A program. And clearly you have a roadmap or a blueprint to do all of this sort of from A to Z. And just as an entree to that, right, you have the Law Firm Growth Summit coming up that's going to cover, I would imagine, a lot of these different things. I know you have over 40 speakers lined up. I'm one of them. But maybe we can highlight just some of the key topics that we're gonna see covered during that. I know you have stuff about just improving cash flow profit margins, using marketing to grow, building out the team you need, all the things you were just discussing. Maybe we can go through each of those just to give people an idea what that framework looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did for this event is we structured it, and the first day is Investor Day, right? Like everything on the first day is themed around this idea that you need to switch how you look at your business. You need to look at it as a business owner, as an investor, make your decisions from there. And everything that we're talking about that day is all the topics and themes that are related or surrounding this concept of thinking of your business differently in that way. On day 2, so then once you think like an investor and you've decided, okay, I'm either going to invest some capital, buy another practice, or find another way to accelerate this growth, but I'm going to start thinking differently about it, there's 2 pieces to the business puzzle. One piece is the team. The second piece is the clients, right? Like people like to overcomplicate business. Business is not that complicated. You need people to do the work, and then you need clients to fill those people's plates. Now, we can have the conversation of which came first, the chicken or the egg. The people who are more risk averse will say, I'm going to invest in marketing first. I want the clients coming in, so I have the assurance that when I put people in place, there's work for them. I, on the other hand, with my experience and working with hundreds of law firm owners and understanding how things actually work, would argue that you need to put the capacity in place first, because you cannot approach the sales conversation within the back of your mind knowing, how in the world am I going to serve this person?
Yeah.
When that conversation is going on in the back of your head, you cannot close sales. And what's going to end up happening is that you push people off on their appointments, their follow-ups. You don't follow up on sales calls. You don't send them a proposal you said you were going to send them. You do all the things to get in your own way that you don't realize you're actually doing until you have somebody's mouth to feed. And the moment you have somebody's mouth to feed, all of a sudden, sales become easy.
Yeah, that's a real strong incentive, I would imagine. Yeah, now you've got these people on the payroll. You've got to get them to work.
Exactly. So I believe in capacity first, fill the capacity second. So day 2 is going to be geared towards building that rockstar team. And we're going to have conversations about leadership, conversations about how to hire, different ways to think about hiring, like offshore, nearshore, overseas, Philippines, whatever. Like there's so many options. The beautiful thing about starting a business today is that you have so many different ways to make this happen, including fractional work, right? Like you can put us in as a fractional CFO. You can put somebody in as a fractional CMO. You can put in, a part-time VA that's going to be doing support services. And then when it gets busier, you make them full-time. You can go to lawclerk.legal and you can, get somebody on a contract basis when you've exceeded your capacity and you haven't found the person to fill that next role. You can go and hire contract workers to get the work done. We're in an environment where there's an answer to everything, and the only thing that's going to prevent you from doing this is you. You have to be when you're an investor and you think like an investor, you understand that the way to success is perseverance and grit, and that everything is a numbers game. When you come to me and say, I can't hire an attorney, there aren't any attorneys out there, I'm going to call bullshit on you. And the only reason you haven't found an attorney is because you haven't looked hard enough. You haven't looked under the right rock. Right?
Yeah, and it seems like the nice thing about, the law firm, it's a service business. The people you hire, you can tap into geographical markets all over the world. You're not digging holes. They don't have to be in any particular place. So yeah, all of the ways and places in which you can hire people are more available today than ever.
Yeah. So, you wanted specific talks. Go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com and literally on the registration page, if you scroll down a little bit past the speakers, we have all of the topics that people are speaking on. Like it's all there. And we break it down by the size of your firm. So invite our speakers to come in and tell us, who are you best talking to, right? Are you talking to the solo? Are you talking to the 1 to 2 person firm? We call those startup sessions, right? And like we've got Diane F., who's talking on beginning with the end in mind, exit planning for the solo small firm. She's doing a talk on how to structure your solo practice in a way that it's prepared for sale, not because you want to sell it, but because when your firm is prepared for sale, it means that you're profitable. It means you have systems in place. It means that you have consistent client growth, right? Like it means you've done the work to create a business because now you've got something to sell. So yeah. I love that talk. I love that idea. And then we're just going down the list. Jacqueline Foster, she's been training paralegals to run their own paralegal business. And then she got bought out by one of these companies that does, staffing, virtual staffing and stuff like that. She's doing a talk on how to build a firm that grows itself. And I'm sure she's going to be talking about how to use the resources out there to grow your practice and, in these unique ways that when you think like an investor, you can start thinking outside the box. If you're approaching it from what you know and what you've experienced, you might have been in big law. You might have been in an office where everybody was there in person. You might have been in a place with bloated salaries, and that's your vision of what a law firm might look like. But who's to say it can't be like my accounting practice where I'm in the downstairs of my house in my own office, and I don't have not one employee that works in my office. And we've got employees all over the world. I was running late to this call and somebody in Colombia jumped on and told you, Jason, hey, Moshe's running a few minutes late. He'll be here shortly.
Yeah, I would imagine even just the value of having an executive or administrative assistant that can handle all these small tasks, right? There's plenty of books out there, Dan Martell, buy back your time. But the objective here is, and this is certainly something I work towards in our lives, is like to be spending your time on only the things that, one, you enjoy, and two, deliver maximum impact. And everything else gets delegated to people that enjoy those things and actually do them well. Because oftentimes you're doing low value tasks, you're not even good at them, and so many other people like it and can do them far better. But it really becomes the difference, I guess, going again back to kind of the E-Myth or whatever it is, working instead of in your business, you're working on your business all the time. That's how an investor would view it. And that really seems to be what this conference or this summit is going to just be full of amazing sessions on how to get there. Like even just, you're talking about exit planning. I've sort of was led to the idea that exit planning is nothing more than good business planning because it's all about value creation. And what it allows you to do is not that you have to sell your business, like you said, it's just that you are able to sell your business whenever you're ready. If something comes up, there's, whatever, life things happen, you have a business that is built to sell.
It's kind of like I just sold my house and bought another one. Like my family just moved in June, right? When we decided we were going to sell the house, all of a sudden, now we're repainting rooms. Now we're covering the holes on the wall. Now we're organizing the house and making sure it's presentable every time somebody walks in. Like, what if we ran our house that way all the time? How much better would our lives have been if we always had our house ready for sale? And that's what happens in your business, right? Like if you start thinking about what creates value in my business, it's going to be one of a few things. It's either recurring clients. So if you're in a business where you have repeat customers, so for example, you do business law and you have business clients and you get them on a subscription model, that is something that somebody would be willing to buy because they know that consistent income is coming in. If you have a marketing system that is bringing in consistent leads, you've figured out the marketing beast. So many people spend so much of their energy trying to figure it out. You've figured it out. That's something that somebody would be willing to buy. And if you have a rock star team that's delivering the service and you're basically hands off, that becomes something that people are willing to buy. But when you, the owner, are integral in the business, when you don't have consistency in sales coming in or you don't have recurring revenue, you have nothing to sell. So even if you're producing $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, nobody wants that.
Yeah, I heard a quote recently. I don't know if you're familiar with Nick Bradley, right? But he was talking about, like, generally speaking, the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable that business is, right? Owner dependency is a value killer in any business, certainly in a law firm. I wanted to talk about, so something cool you guys are doing this year. I think it's new, but makes a ton of sense, right? You have different learning tracks depending on what stage of firm you are. And I think that's great. Like I'm speaking on Google Ads, and sometimes when I'm talking about, I'm like, I don't know if I should go super basic for people who don't know about it, but then the people who do are like, this is nothing of value. So, and vice versa. So you have different tracks: startup, expansion, and legacy creator. So I think that's an awesome thing, because now not only does it appeal to a wide range of attorneys with different challenges, but there's tracks specific to where they are at this time.
Yeah, 100%. And it's actually not new. We did it last year. We're getting better at helping people see it, like identifying it. So we're getting better in how we deliver the marketing piece of it, so people understand what's available to them. But I think it's really important to just take 2 seconds to talk about just how the summit came about. When I started the podcast, March of 2019, I started interviewing a ton of amazing people here in the industry. And through post-interview questions and conversations, I was asking, like, why aren't we collaborating and doing something together to make an impact? And everyone was like, we should make our own conference. Like we should, and the whole thought was like, we should do an in-person event. And I said, I've got little kids at home.
Yeah.
My wife would kill me if I traveled for a week at a time. Right. Going and doing the conference circuit is just it's not in my wheelhouse. Not something I'm going to do. I said, how many other people are out there that can't leave their business or their families for whatever reason, and therefore conferences are out of reach? How many people are out there that a $2,000 ticket actually would be difficult for them to invest in right now? Right. Yeah. And that's when I had this epiphany, like, what if I don't have to worry about how to get all the speakers there? What if I don't have to worry about how people are going to be able to carve out the time? What if I create a virtual event? What if I make it free to attend? And then what if I offer the recordings for people who can't attend the specific sessions? Now it's basically, there's no excuses. Everybody can attend this thing. And that's really where the idea and the concept of the Law Firm Growth Summit was born. And for those people in the room who are like, oh, I've heard this before, we had our first event in December of 2019, a full three months before COVID was a thing, and before everybody realized that they need to have virtual events in order to get people in a room. So we've been doing this for a long time. This is our 5th event, and we've figured out how to make it an experience, how to give people an opportunity to collaborate with each other if that's what they're seeking, but to also give you the ability to come and go as you please, attend the sessions that get your attention the most. And if after you register for free, you're like, there's so much here, there's no way I'm going to be able to get it all, there's a VIP ticket that you can buy. Yeah, you'll get a cool box of swag in the mail, but besides for that, you'll get access to all the recordings, and there's over 50 sessions that you'll have access to. And I've had multiple conversations with people after the event, 2-3 weeks later, and who spent weekends, 2 or 3 weekends going through the content and completely transformed their business because of it.
Yeah, it's so valuable. And I know when I go to conferences, oftentimes in addition, they'll sell the recordings, which I often buy and then often refer to. And I think the big thing is you can be present during the conference, listening, soaking it in, but then you have a resource to go back to and rewatch, sometimes a couple of times, to truly get the concepts. But anyway, listen, I know you only have a few minutes left, so I just want to make sure we get all the information here. So I'm here with Moshe Amsel. We've been talking about the upcoming Law Firm Growth Summit. It's a free 3-day virtual conference for law firm owners. Again, that's February 4th through 6th, 2025. So for the latest information, the agenda, the speaker lineup, and registering for free, visit the official website, lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. Again, that's lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. And I've just jotted down a few of the highlights: 40 industry-leading speakers, insights into various investor tactics to drive growth, roadmaps for scaling, systems, teams, techniques for client acquisition, and just overall building a firm that operates independently of the owner and allowing them more freedom. So thank you, Moshe. This has been an amazing conversation. I could go on for another hour with you, but I know you have some time constraints here.
Yeah, as can I, Jason. So we'll just have to come back and do it some more, right?
Yeah.
But I want to leave your listeners with two things. Number one, there's a book that I wanted to mention earlier. I want to bring back and talk about it now, and it's called Who Not How. You may have heard of it. You may have heard of the terminology of Who Not How, but it is a wonderful book that really brings home this concept of every time you have a challenge, start asking that question. Because our instinct, especially when we're building a firm based off of the backs of our own knowledge, our instinct with every challenge is to think of it as, how can I fix this? And when you start asking how, you're in the wrong seat. You're in that seat of, I'm the executor, I'm the person who's going to do it, everything relies on me. The reality is that if you were an investor, you would never ask, how do I do this? It would always be, who can do this for me, or who can figure out how to do this for me.
Yeah,
and
who's
that,
better
when
at this?
you get really good at asking that question, that is going to completely change your world, change your business, and really get you on that rocket ship to success. And when you have business success, and when you're doing million plus in revenue at a 35% profit margin, that's when you start to have the flexibility and the financial muscle to start to create that generational wealth. People ask me, like, how do I pay off my student loans? Well, it's easy. Get to $1 million, 35% profit margin, knock them out in 1 year.
Yeah.
Right?
Happens real quick.
So doing this, getting your business operating at a high enough level, at a maximum efficiency enough level from a financial perspective, is the stepping stone to completely changing everything in your life. And I don't even remember what the second thought that I had was, but what I am going to say is the Law Firm Growth Summit starts at 8:30 in the morning. We open a networking session then. The first talk is at 10 a.m., and that's Eastern time. Go to that networking session, connect with other attorneys, other law firm owners. You never know what's going to come from those conversations. But even if you don't have that time available to you, join us at 10 a.m. We have a keynote speaker each of the 3 days. So I kick off with a talk, then we have a keynote speaker, and then behind that, we start to go into all these different topics that you see highlighted. And the keynote speakers have yet to be announced, so I'm not going to spoil it here, but they'll be announced over the course of the next few days. And if you go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, you'll see who's already been revealed, and we have some really great rock stars coming your way, and I'm super excited about the lineup. And I think that if you're able to attend, even if you're able to mark out 3 days, that'd be awesome. I definitely encourage you to attend. And then the last thing is after you buy that VIP pass with the recordings, you're going to be offered to join us for an implementation day. And that's new this year. So many people come, they drink from a fire hose. They're like, they've got a notebook full of notes, and then they do nothing with it. And we want to change that. We want you to be able to not only learn, not only get a ton of amazing ideas, but then put those ideas into action. So we're calling it an implementation day. It's actually 2 days over the course of 2 weeks, where we're just going to get in on Zoom together, and we're going to help you focus on the thing that you decided you're going to implement, be there to answer your questions and guide you, and just help you get that into place and get it started. So I'm super excited about this event. We're going to welcome in a couple of thousand law firm owners, and you should be one of them and join us and really just start changing the story of your business.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait, both as a speaker, but also as an attendee. I'm looking forward to it. There's no question. There's going to be a ton of value, so much to learn. I love the idea that you have an implementation game plan to follow to really execute on the stuff that you learn, because going to these conferences can be a fire hose. And so to have some approach to start to implement everything, that's brilliant. Again, go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. Moshe, you're the man, dude. Thank you so much for being on here. This was a great conversation. I look forward to future conversations with you.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks for listening to the Alpha Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Marsh, and I appreciate you joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other lawyers who might benefit. You can find more resources and insights on building a thriving law firm at alphalawyer.io or the Alpha Lawyer YouTube channel. Till next time, keep building the firm of your dreams so you can live your best life.